A new book out today that tells the inside story of how Wall Street and Washington were forced to work together to save the banking system. Andrew Ross Sorkin is the author of Too Big to Fail, and he's chief mergers and acquisitions reporter for the New York Times, a longtime friend of Squawk. Give us a couple stories from the book, and we should point out that a lot of the things that you write about weren't in the midst of September, October, November. There were things going on well before then.
I would say two things. The most fascinating part for me, by the way, was, we all woke up in September and thought the world was on fire. But really, the story starts, the book starts the day after Bear Stearns, actually at Dick Fold's house, and really the pressure point and domino that's going to put on him. But a scene that I think people don't appreciate, and I never appreciated as a reporter, was in June. Goldman Sachs.
June of 08.
June of 08. Goldman Sachs has a board meeting in Russia, originally in St. Petersburg, and they moved to Moscow. And one morning, the issue of the day is, do we want to become a bank holding company? Do we want to get deposits? And are you ready for this one? Do we want to buy AIG? And they spend several hours talking about the idea of whether they want to buy AIG, in part because they think it could be cheap, and in part because they think they may need deposits to weather this storm. And so I do give them enormous credit in some ways for actually
thinking outside the box.
They saw this coming a little bit earlier than the others, and people have always said, how does Goldman see it ahead of time? They seem to do a pretty good job.
And becoming a bank holding company, they all did. In fact, in your Vanity Fair excerpt, it points out that the blank fine, it says, John Mack, you better consider doing this. This is one thing.
And by the way, the other sad piece, and it's actually there's an excerpt in the Times today as well on this piece. Lehman Brothers, as you know, went to Tim Geithner a Saturday afternoon, July 12th, I want to say, and says, we should become a bank holding company, too. That's what we should be doing. So there were people thinking about this. The Fed sort of gave them the yellow card and said, I'm not sure this is the right decision at the moment, and it didn't end up happening.
Because by becoming a bank holding company, you get access to a lot of funds, cheap money that comes in.
And you become like a Citigroup or JP Morgan. You get the cheap funds, and it gives some semblance of confidence in the marketplace, or at least that's what the perspective was.
The board meeting in Russia.
Board meeting in Russia. There's a moment after the board meeting, which I know will become somewhat controversial, which is that in Moscow, that night, 9:30 at night, it's a Sunday evening, I think, you're not going to believe who they all go to meet with. They all get on a bus and go to a hotel to meet with Hank Paulson, the Treasury Secretary. And it is remarkable, and I know the Goldman conspiracy theorists will go crazy. I heard about it, and of course my light bulb goes off. Oh my God, why is he meeting with Goldman Sachs' board?
In Russia.
In Russia, at night. It's not on the regular calendar.
Supposed to be.
Which you would not think he's supposed to be doing. It was considered what's called a social event. In fairness to him, he would say he got approval from Treasury. This was prior to his waiver, the famous waiver that comes later in September when there's a decision made about whether Hank Paulson needs to get involved meaningfully with trying to save the company. And by the way, if you want to read the waiver, just to plug it, we're going to be putting out all of these documents online at toobigtofail.com, so you can actually see inside what Treasury was doing. A lot of the Lehman documents we're going to be making available throughout the week. If you ever want to read the Break the Glass plan, one of the things that was shocking to me, remember this thing you heard about, Break the Glass? TARP. We thought it happened in September. It was written on April 15th. There's an 11-page memo, and you look at it and you go, oh my goodness. And so there's this sense that the train was coming down the tracks, and people saw the train, and everyone's trying to get out of the way, and nobody does.
Right.
And that's really the travesty.
Some of the emotions behind it are so visceral. The way Mac is angry at the shorts, or the way Gary Cohn tries to tell, is it Druckenmiller?
Stan Druckenmiller, yes.
Not to take his money back.
Exactly.
And saying these are your relationship.
This is our relationship. And I think he says, I'm making lists of my friends and my enemies. I mean, this was as much
and he says, too bad, it's my money, give it to me.
And not in those words.
Right. This is as much a human drama as it is anything else. And, the book's called Too Big to Fail. And you think about that phrase in the context of institutions. Right. But in the end, for me, and the way I tried to describe this, it's really a story about people who think that they're too big to fail. And it really is, hopefully, a new look into actually what happens so that you can really make some of your own judgments about what's happened over the past couple of years.